Hello, Northeast Lake County. I'm Rob Inglis, the president of Mount Dora Area Chamber of Commerce, and thank you for joining us in our continuing series of honoring our veterans for Veterans Day. Our upcoming Veterans Day celebration is at Lake Receptions on Wednesday, November 7th. So all of you veterans, if you haven't yet, come on our website, mountdora.com, and register for your complimentary breakfast where we honor you along with a complimentary guest admission. And for those of you that are going to be joining us that aren't veterans, you can also purchase your ticket at mountdora.com. I'm excited today to be with not only a veteran, but one of Mount Dora's own. He grew up here. He's been sharing with me before we went on camera, Henry Land. So Henry, if you will just tell us, you grew up in Mount Dora,
right?
Graduated high school when in Mount Dora?
1961.
Okay, and then you went off to?
University of Florida.
Yes,
that's
sir.
Not Florida State, that's University of Florida.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. We were talking about that earlier. He's rubbing in my Seminoles, but anyway, go ahead.
And anyway, I graduated from the University of Florida with a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture and got my ROTC commission as a second lieutenant in the United States Army. And I went from there to Fort Sam Houston as my first duty station.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Now, your job in the service.
Okay.
Take us what you were trained for and where you went.
Okay. When I got to Fort Sam Houston, we had our officer basic, and they were asking for volunteers for the flight program to fly medical evacuation in Vietnam. And I was Medical Service Corps, was my branch in the service, so I went ahead and volunteered. They say don't volunteer, and as you can see what happens when you stick your hand in the air, it doesn't pay. Anyway, so I went from there to Fort Walters, Texas for my primary helicopter training, and then to Fort Rucker, Alabama for my advanced training in combat flying.
Your training was how long before you actually?
It was between 8 and 9 months.
Okay, all right.
So I shipped out to Vietnam and got to Vietnam on August, I think it was August 10th, 67. And I went from there to An Khê. I was with the 1st Cavalry Division, and I was flying medevac, one of 12 medevac helicopters that we had, and was there through 1968, the Tet Offensive. And I was up close to the DMZ. I was in Quang Tri and An Khê and Camp Evans. So I was working at the Citadel in Hue. So that was where I did most of my, flying later in my tour. I was as far south as Phan Thiet, which is about 90 miles north of Saigon.
Right.
So,
now, for those of us that weren't there, you were talking before we went on camera about going out and bringing the wounded back and the dead. We didn't bring dead. Oh, okay.
And the reason we didn't bring dead is because if you're wounded and alive and you look over and your buddy that you know is dead is next to you, it does not enhance your recovering ability. So we only haul live people.
All right.
The slicks would haul out the dead at another time.
Now, with what was going on over there on a daily basis, were you going out daily and bringing back wounded? Was it averaging that much daily?
Well, we had we'd usually have 2 medevac helicopters stationed and an AO over there and area of operation. And the first day you'd have first up, and the other aircraft would only go out if there were multiple wounded in different sites. So first up, first day, then you'd go to second up the next day, and some days you'd have nothing. We read a lot of books, we played Monopoly and stuff like that. But when it did hit the fan, now during the Christmas ceasefire in December, not supposed to be any live contact, we had probably, I flew more that particular day when they weren't supposed to be shooting than any other day in the country. I flew over 6 hours Christmas Eve.
Oh wow, that's unbelievable. Well, that gives us an idea of what your daily routine was back. Share with us actually how you lost your right hand. Share with that, because that's a great story. As far as, listen guys, these and ladies, these guys literally go out into combat on a daily basis over there. So I want you to just share how that happened.
Okay, we would get, as medevac, we would get a call from the infantry or grunts and 11 bravos for you out there that are 11 boom boom. Anyway, we would get a call and they'd say we've got, you know, X number of wounded, so we would crank our aircraft, we'd get the coordinates of where the ground troops were and where the injured were, and we'd head out and we'd give them a call when we got within 2 or 3 minutes of their location and say, this is Medevac 456, we're 02 from your location, what's the nature of your injuries, and what was the direction of your last fire, or are you in contact at this time? And they would relay that information to us, how many needed stretchers, how many needed were walking, and I'd say go ahead and pop a smoke, and they would pop a smoke, but we would identify from the air, because one day I had 5 or 6 smokes come up simultaneously when I said pop a smoke, so that's why we identified. We would go in, we'd try to land in, going into the wind and not over where they received fire blast from. We'd pick them up, take them back to a battalion aid station, that's where they were treated, and then dust off would pick them up after they were stabilized and take them back to a MASH hospital if they needed surgery. And these were missions that you could actually land on, and you were saying something about how this happened. That was a hoist mission, and a hoist mission is where you have no room to land because of the foliage or the trees, that sort of thing. And you would have to come over and hover, drop a cable down through the jungle canopies, pull the wounded up. You might bring them up on a JP or jungle penetrator or on a semi-rigid litter. We'd load them onto the aircraft, and then we would haul them back to the battalion aid station. The day this happened, the ground troops got disoriented there, and so after about 45 minutes trying to find their location, because I don't think they were certain where they were, we finally hooked up. I came in from about 3,000 feet down, popped a red smoke. Unfortunately, that last red smoke that they popped, the NVA were down there, and they took AK-47s and hosed our aircraft, so the Red Cross didn't help that day. And as we were going in, we took fire, as I said, and one went through the floor, right through my hand, blew it off the cyclic stick, went right on out through the top. My hand was non-functional, and the Peter pilot that I had in there, he'd just gotten in the country, never been under fire, but he did get us back. And the one thing I didn't say earlier is normally it takes about 4 minutes for the rotor blade to stop turning. The day we got back to our battalion aid station, LZ, the blade froze before I could even get out of the seat. It just like that. So if it happened sooner, we would have crashed before I ever got off. So, but anyway, I went from there to operation in Quang Tri and Quinh Nhân for my second operation, went to Japan for my third one, and they didn't amputate it until 21 days later when I got back to the United States at Fort Sam Houston.
Right, yeah. Well, and then you were involved in medevac there, and then you come back home and you, to Mount Dora, ultimately, go off to college to become a
pharmacist.
There you go. So you're still involved in medical.
Right.
Yeah.
I worked in the operating room before I went over and flew medevac in Vietnam and came back and continued in the medical field, but in a little bit different. It's like driving an ambulance with an EMS, except they're shooting at you, and you're flying instead of driving.
Yeah.
So,
Henry, I got to ask you, when was the last time you were in a helicopter?
You mean one was actually flying? Or?
Yeah, flying. Has it been since you were in the service?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
well,
okay.
Actually, I've flown one with a hook.
Okay.
I had a friend of mine that was at Fort Rucker, and he was flying Flatiron, which is the crash rescue for the flight school. And I went flying, and I flew the helicopter with, you know, my hand on my hook on the cyclic and my left hand normally. I had to change my seat position, but I was still able to do it. Actually, I could hover better than my friend that took me up. So
well, that's amazing. You know, the reason I ask is so many times when people go through a tragic situation like that, they're afraid to get back on the horse. You got back on the horse.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I didn't take up flying once I got back stateside because there's too many idiots that think they know what they're doing, and those are the ones that get you killed. Like they say, they're old pilots, bold pilots, but not many old, bold pilots. You don't talk to many people that walk away from midair.
That's true. That's true. In closing, what would you like to tell whoever's listening this morning? What would you like to tell them?
Well, I got over there in August '67. My brother got over there December '67. We hadn't seen Saving Private Ryan, so we didn't know two of us were supposed to be in the same country during combat. Mm-hmm. But he was 11 Boom Boom with 101st Airborne. He was a platoon leader and later became a company commander because all the captains had gotten shot or killed or wounded. And I knew that if I were going to be out there on the ground like those guys were doing, like many of you out there probably were, I'd like to have some dumb SOB like me that was willing to hang their life out to get somebody out so they could live.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your service. And thank you guys for honoring our veterans. Don't forget, if you haven't already got your complimentary tickets if you're a veteran, or purchase your tickets if you're not, to do it. Come out and join us. And what a great celebration we're going to have on November 7th, 7:30 to 9 o'clock at Lake Receptions. Bye now.